Imagine a galactic research station in panic mode, alarms blaring as Professor Keylor announces they've discovered Earth's most lethal plant. The containment chamber glows with hazard warnings inside a single leaf of lettuce. Then Dave, the human janitor, walks in and asks, "Wait, is that just iceberg lettuce?" The aliens recoil in horror at his casual tone. What happens next will make you question everything you think you know about danger. And lunch. The research station's emergency lights strobed crimson as Professor Keylor, all 6 feet of purple exoskeleton and twitching antennae, jabbed a trembling limb at the containment field. Inside floated what appeared to be a single, slightly wilted lettuce leaf. "Code Viridian," the mantis scholar shrieked, mandibles clacking. "This Earth specimen exhibits all characteristics of a Class 12 biohazard." 3 researchers in full containment gear stood frozen at their terminals, their multiple eyes reflecting scrolling threat assessments. One adjusted the spectrometer with unsteady hands. "It's worse than we thought," buzzed a Vitrian scientist through her respirator. "The scans show nearly 96% water content, and the remaining cellular structure appears deliberately nutrient deficient." Across the room, another alien tech sealed the ventilation system with emergency bulkheads. Quarantine procedures unfolded with military precision. The leaf sat centered in a triple-layered force field, bathed in sterile UV rays. Warning glyphs in 17 languages spiraled across the chamber walls, pulsing in time with the blaring sirens. A robotic arm extended through an airlock to perform tertiary analysis, its pincers trembling visibly. The collective scientific database of 12 advanced civilizations had prepared them for Earth's carnivorous plants, toxic fungi, even those deceptively pretty flowering shrubs that cause third-degree burns. But this was something far more sinister. "Note the camouflage," Keylor announced, zooming the holo display, mimicking harmless vegetation while containing lethal passive-aggressive properties. A single leaf could destabilize an entire ecosystem's nutritional expectations. Alarms whooped as fresh data flashed across screens. Confirmed. 0 caloric value despite occupying cultivatable surface area. And these trace compounds. The head xenobiologist staggered back from his console. They match the biochemical signature of Earth's so-called diet foods. This isn't just a plant, it's psychological warfare. 4 armed guards took positions around the containment chamber, their pulse rifles set to maximum disintegration. The station's AI announced impending lockdown with unsettling calm. Then the lab doors slid open with a cheerful chime. Dave shuffled in holding a mop bucket. His eyes traveled from the tactical deployment to the floating lettuce. The janitor scratched his stubble. "Y'all know that's just iceberg lettuce, right?" The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. 12 alien pupils dilated in perfect synchronization. Keylor's exoskeleton made an audible cracking sound as he stiffened. The word came out strangled, like someone had stepped on a synthesizer. Dave reached for the leaf. Every weapon in the room whined as it powered up. "Dude, we put this in salads," he said, and the sound of 5 different species emergency alert buttons being mashed simultaneously nearly drowned him out. Silence swallowed the lab. 10 different breathing apparatuses hissed in perfect unison as Dave's words hung in the artificial gravity. The lead scientist's antennae trembled like malfunctioning radar dishes. "Human employee," Professor Keylor began with forced calm, an emergency siren still wailing in the background. "Are you suggesting this atrocity poses no biological threat?" Dave blinked. "It's salad." This proved too much for the Vitrian xenobiologist who triggered its species' involuntary stress response, a high-pitched screech followed by rapid bioluminescence cycling. Purple alarm lights reflected off its quivering carapace. "Don't say that word so casually," it buzzed. "Do you comprehend the molecular horrors we're detecting? The crisp crunch of destruction? The soggy inevitability of cellular decay?" Across the room, a holographic projection zoomed in on the leaf's edge with forensic intensity. "Observe the serrated margin," Keylor narrated, voice climbing an octave. "Clearly evolved to inflict maximum suffering during mastication." Dave chewed his lip. "Buddy, I think you're reading too much into—" "Stop!" 3 restraining appendages shot out from the wall-mounted emergency systems, immobilizing Dave's right hand halfway to his face. The security AI blared, potential self-harm intervention initiated. Subject attempting direct digital contact with presumed toxic specimen residue. All 12 scientists recoiled as if Dave had pulled a live grenade pin with his teeth. The Rakiri contingent activated emergency face shields with a synchronized snap hiss. One particularly jumpy cyborg actually short-circuited its threat assessment module, spraying sparks across the quarantine notices. Dave sighed, still pinned by the safety clamps. Okay, really? You guys don't even have napkins in the break room because of foreign particulate risks, but you're flipping out over basic roughage? He nodded at the still levitating leaf. I could eat that right now. The collective gasp fogged up several visors. Kalor's mandibles worked soundlessly for 3 full seconds before he managed. This constitutes either suicidal ideation or unprecedented biological immunity. Either way, he frantically tapped his wrist console. We must document this moment for the galactic record. A floating cam drone zoomed in on Dave's face while another recorded the lettuce from 12 angles simultaneously. The readout screens all flashed Miracle Suicide Watch in bold glyphs. 3 different medical tricorders began competing for optimal scan position near his digestive tract. The Screech medic adjusted its spinal implant with shaking claws. Human vital signs remain disgustingly stable. No adrenaline spike, no defensive mucus secretion. It's as if he genuinely believes that Deathleaf won't dissolve his digestive tract. Dave wiggled his restrained fingers. Can someone maybe unclamp me before we— Aha! The revelation burst from Kalor like a punctured containment unit. He pivoted to his colleagues with the air of a detective unveiling the murder weapon. This explains everything. Earth must be a Type 15 death world. Their entire ecosystem evolved to weaponize complacency. Murmurs of horrified agreement rippled through the scientific team. One particularly excitable intern actually fainted into its own auxiliary limbs. The lead researcher solemnly adjusted her lab coat. We must run exhaustive tests, she announced. Starting with, does the human truly ingest this substance? All heads turned to Dave. He glanced at the lettuce, then at the scientists, then back at the lettuce, then shrugged and popped it in his mouth. The ensuing chaos included 7 distinct alarm systems activating simultaneously, 1 emergency call to a xenopsychiatric crisis line, and the cyborg fainting directly onto its own taser nodes. Kalor collapsed against a console, forelimbs clutching his thorax. Hita consumed the biotoxin, with recreational chewing motions. This changes everything. Security footage later showed Dave swallowing with zero ceremony, while 6 scientists scrambled to update their entire understanding of biochemistry. Tastes fine, he noted, picking a fleck of leaf from his teeth. Could use some ranch. 2 interns immediately requested transfer to safer assignments. One began drafting its will. The station's head of xenocultural studies slowly removed her hazard helmet, with trembling appendages. Human, she whispered as if speaking to a live bomb. We require clarification. Dave eyed the still blaring alarms. You guys got any croutons? Professor Kalor reactivated the holographic display with a grim flick of his antenna. The lettuce scan rotated slowly, certain chemical compounds pulsing red. Let us begin with the water content, he intoned. This specimen consists of 96% dihydrogen oxide, a known solvent capable of dissolving entire mineral deposits over time. The Vitrian scientist shuddered, its carapace plates clacking like castanets. Dave leaned against his mop bucket. We call that water. Precisely. Kalor's mandibles vibrated with academic fervor, and this so-called water occupies what should be nutrient-rich cellular structures. It's an evolutionary trap, filling digestive tracts with liquid while providing zero caloric payload. His claw tapped the display, highlighting empty vacuoles in the leaf cells. This isn't nutrition. It's a dietary ambush. One of the Rakiri researchers adjusted its breathing apparatus with shaky claws. Worse still, the remaining 4% contains trace amounts of oxalic acid and lactucin. The molecular models flashed ominous crimson, both known irritants to 78% of galactic species' mucosal linings. Dave scratched his neck. Yeah, that's why it's got some crunch. The aliens exchanged glances. The Screech medic cycled through 4 different emotional pheromones before settling on horrified fascination. You acknowledge the presence of harmful compounds, it buzzed, yet consume it deliberately. Its thoracic vents emitted a puff of distress-scented vapor. This suggests either masochistic tendencies or— The medic gulped. Advanced biological torture resistance. The cyborg scientist rolled forward on its treads, scanning Dave's face with pulsing green lasers. Even if humans evolved resistance to these toxins, The nutrient profile remains scientifically offensive. It pulled up a chart comparing lettuce to standard galactic meal replacement tablets. Less protein than reactor coolant. Lower mineral density than filtered stardust. Dave squinted at the graphs. But it's green. That means it's healthy. A collective gasp rippled through the assembled scientists. The concept of color-based nutrition assessment seemed to short-circuit 3 separate translators. They huddled together, whispering in panicked bursts. Finally, Professor Keylor turned back to Dave, his antennae drooping like wilted celery. Your species consumes this substance. Regularly? And like most restaurants, Dave confirmed. He gestured toward the lounge. Got a whole fridge of it in the comm. Every alarm in the station whooped back to life. 3 emergency containment fields flared around the hallway leading to the break room. The head of station security drew her neural disruptor with 4 trembling hands. All personnel evacuate Sector 5, the PA announced with forced calm. Biohazard containment breach. Okay, seriously? Dave waved at the still levitating lettuce remains. It's not even the dangerous stuff. Try munching on kale sometime. That stuff's basically armor plating. The Screech medic's exoskeleton made a sound like popcorn kernels exploding. There are worse varieties? Yeah, tons. Dave counted on grease-stained fingers. Arugula's got that peppery kick. Spinach makes your teeth feel fuzzy. Endive's just bitter for no reason. He paused as 6 scientists simultaneously activated emergency medical drones. What? Kaylor's voice emerged 2 octaves higher than normal. You're describing progressively more offensive chemical weapons with the enthusiasm of a food critic. Humans consider these flavor profiles? The Vitrian researcher frantically typed notes into its wrist console. Please confirm this spinach substance is also voluntarily ingested. Yeah, in smoothies and stuff. Dave grinned as the attendants collectively recoiled at the unfamiliar word. You blend it with fruit to hide the taste. The cyborg's processing unit emitted a high-pitched whine. Primates on Grixis 9 use similar techniques to camouflage poison bait for pests. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Professor Keylor slowly rose to his full height, emergency lights reflecting in his multifaceted eyes. Human Dave, he said gravely, what is the most toxic vegetation your species willingly consumes? Dave thought for a moment. Probably ghost peppers. Those'll mess you up good. Hot! Shrieked a previously silent Growth technician, triggering its species' innate fire suppression response. A jet of frothy retardant foam sprayed from its nasal cavity. The security chief's secondary arms clutched her thorax. Surely your people at least process these nightmarish plants into safe, inert supplements. She whispered desperately. Nah, we just dunk 'em in batter and deep fry sometimes. Every blaring alarm suddenly cut out. The silence felt heavier than neutron star matter. The station's chief medical officer slowly rotated its eye cluster toward Professor Keylor. We must revise the entire Terran threat assessment, it murmured. Either humans possess indestructible digestive systems or... The medical officer's voice dropped to a horrified whisper. Or they simply enjoy suffering. Dave watched the scientists' horrified faces, then glanced down at his half-eaten lunch bag. He rummaged through it and pulled out a wrinkled brown pod. Oh man, forgot I had this leftover. 12 weapons locked onto the unrecognized object. Professor Keylor's chitinous plating rattled like a cargo bay during turbulence. What fresh atrocity is that? Dave peeled open the pod with deliberate slowness, revealing dark beans within. Coffee beans, he popped one in his mouth. Little bitter, but... The station's AI made an uncharacteristically emotional decision and preemptively deployed the fire suppression systems. White foam rained from the ceiling vents as over a dozen xenoscientists simultaneously triggered their species' version of a nervous breakdown. Several fell to their knees. An intern began methodically disassembling its own recording equipment while whimpering about career choices. Only Professor Keylor remained upright, swaying slightly, his antennae limp with existential dread. So let me understand, he said in a voice like a collapsing star. Your people first domesticated lethal plants, then bred stronger poison variants for recreational use, then developed methods to concentrate their toxins into liquid form. His entire exoskeleton shuddered. And you do this. For fun? Dave chewed thoughtfully. Well, yeah, but mostly to wake up in the morning. 6 different scientists fainted in perfect synchronization. The research lab smelled like panic and disinfectant foam. 12 alien scientists clutched emergency breathing masks while Dave casually rummaged through his lunch bag. "Yeah, so if you think lettuce is bad," he said, pulling out a bright red pepper, "wait till you hear about jalapenos." He gave the vegetable an affectionate little toss in his palm. Immediately, 3 biosensors screamed in unison. The security chief's tertiary eyes rapidly cycled through different light spectrums. "Alert, alert!" blurted the station AI, detecting concentrated capsaicinoids exceeding Class 4 irritant thresholds. Dave blinked. "It's medium spice at best." A detailed molecular diagram exploded across every screen in the lab. The capsaicin structure rotated ominously, its volatile components flashing red. "There's no medium about this," whispered Professor Keylor, his exoskeleton plates clacking from stress. "This compound directly activates pain receptors in 98% of known species. The Suralaxi use it to polish hull plating, and we put it in tacos," Dave said between crunches. The sound of fresh pepper flesh cracking between human teeth made 2 researchers physically flinch. The Screech medic rushed forward with a scanning wand. "Fascinating. His sweat glands just activated. That's the poison resistance response." "Nah, that's just lunch." Dave wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. "You want to see something crazy?" He dug back into his bag. The collective tension in the room could have powered a small reactor. Out came a brown bulb with papery skin. "Onion." Dave began peeling it with his thumbnail. Immediately, 8 different life-form analyzers screeched in discordant harmony. A Vitrian grad student collapsed against a console, weakly waving away vapors. "Weapons-grade thiosulfonates." It coughed. "Why does it emit tears?" "Why does it emit tears?" Dave sniffled dramatically. "Gets me every time." On the main screen, a cross-section of onion cells revealed their chemical payload. The security chief's breathing apparatus fogged up from hyperventilation. "That volatile compound activates every nociceptive pathway known to science." Keylor's antennae stood rigid with horror. "Tell me your people at least cook these biochemical atrocities before—" "Nope." Dave popped a raw slice in his mouth. Crunch. That's when the cyborg scientist's cooling fans kicked into overdrive. This violates 12 separate interstellar conventions on chemical warfare. Across the room, the Screech medic was now scanning old agricultural files with mounting disbelief. Records indicate humans didn't just forage these poison bulbs, they cultivated stronger varieties. The ancient texts speak of Vidalia and Walla Walla, strains bred specifically for sweetness? Its translator module glitched on the last word. Dave nodded appreciatively. "Good on burgers." Every bio screen in the lab suddenly lit up with emergency glyphs. Keylor's mandibles worked soundlessly like rusted shears. "So to be clear, your species identified an organosulfur bomb that makes predators cry, then selectively bred it to taste better?" "Well, yeah," said Dave. "Same with like Brussels sprouts and cabbage and stuff." 8 different translators simultaneously emitted error chimes. The Rakiri contingent huddled together, whispering urgently. One timidly raised a claw. "These Brussels sprouts, they serve what non-lethal function exactly?" Dave considered this. Mostly Thanksgiving regret. The growth technician made a wet choking noise and activated its personal containment field. Keylor slowly turned to his terminal and began typing with deliberate care. "Note for galactic records. Earthlings appear to have domesticated chemical weapons into recreational side dishes." His antennae drooped. "Also confirm these tacos you mentioned earlier." "Oh, right." Dave perked up. "So you take the poison pepper, the tear gas onion, mix it with this fermented milk toxin we call cheese." A high-pitched alarm cut him off. The station's AI spoke with uncharacteristic hesitation. Multiple distress signals detected from translation core, requesting, paraphrasing. The main viewer lit up with a new molecular scan, this time of a chocolate bar peeking out from Dave's bag. The cyborg scientist's optics dilated with something resembling dread. "That contains theobromine, theobromine." It repeated the word like a curse. The compound that literally dissolves canid-type kidneys. Dave unwrapped the bar with infuriating casualness. "Yeah, kills dogs. We eat it for fun." All 3 of Keylor's left limbs developed a noticeable tremor. "Your people discovered a food that murders other mammals, and your response was—" He swallowed hard. "You better marketing?" The Screech medic rushed forward, scanner glowing red. "His dopamine levels are spiking." The toxin is triggering pleasure centers. Told you, Dave mumbled through a mouthful of chocolate. Makes you happy. That's when the Vitrian researcher absolutely lost it. Happy! Happy! It began furiously typing into the Galactic Hazards database. Alert all trading posts. Earth's entire food chain appears to be weaponized hedonism. They've somehow evolved to enjoy poison. The station's AI started running emergency background checks. Review of cultural files indicates humans also ingest wasabi, coffee, alcohol, nutmeg in large quantities. All designated neurotoxins or irritants in standard xenobiological. Ice clinked as Dave poured himself a drink from the emergency hydration station. Yeah, but nutmeg's only bad if you eat like a cup of it. The resulting silence had actual physical weight. 12 alien scientists exchanged glances that spanned 8 different evolutionary backgrounds, yet all conveyed the same primal understanding. They were in the presence of something truly unhinged. Finally, Professor Keylor straightened his lab coat with trembling claws. "Human Dave," he said with forced calm, "I need you to think carefully. Is there any plant your species doesn't cram into their oral cavities?" Dave paused. Poison ivy?" Somewhere in the back, an intern started quietly packing up its research materials. Keylor seemed to age 3 life cycles in 5 seconds. So to summarize, you'll willingly consume capsaicin. The lab had transformed into a hazmat zone. Biohazard barriers zipped up around the prep area while Professor Keylor adjusted his goggles with nervous precision. Across the room, Dave unwrapped a plastic container with absurd casualness. The sound of the lid popping off made 3 researchers jump. "You'll want suits for this," the Vitrian scientist hissed, adjusting her respirator. 2 robotic arms unfolded from the ceiling, positioning emergency medical scanners on either side of Dave. The bio readouts immediately lit up with baseline human vitals, pulsing in time with his resting heart rate. Keylor tightened his gloves. "Full decon protocol," he announced. "We are about to witness deliberate ingestion of classified toxins." Dave rolled his eyes and pulled out a head of lettuce. The moment his fingers touched it, a proximity alarm blared. The security chief raised a quivering appendage. "Wait, has the specimen been properly irradiated?" "It's pre-washed," Dave said, tearing off a leaf. The sound, that crisp, wet shred, echoed through the silent lab like a gunshot. The Screech medic's thoracic vents flared with distress pheromones. "Did you hear that?" "That's cellular walls rupturing." Dave kept tearing. Each crunch sent another alien scientist retreating further behind their consoles. The Rakiri contingent huddled trembling behind their reinforced face shields. One particularly jumpy intern had embedded itself in the ceiling tiles like a frightened crustacean. "This is worse than the simulations," muttered the cyborg researcher. Its optical sensors flickered with each fresh tear. "The way it yields to manual destruction, it's like watching someone peel flesh from bone." Dave glanced at the horrified faces surrounding him. "You guys never seen someone make salad?" Keylor gripped the edge of his workstation until his exoskeletal plating creaked. "We have documentaries," he whispered. "Old war footage. Nothing so personal." The robotic arms positioned a cutting board with surgeon-like precision. Dave sighed and reached for a knife. "Alert!" The station AI's voice cracked. "Unauthorized sharp object detected in biozone." 4 different containment fields flickered to life around the prep area. The security chief activated a personal force shield. "Human? Could you at least wear protective gear?" Dave ignored them. The knife came down on a cucumber with a wet thunk. The Vitrian scientist fainted clean into a waste receptacle. Its colleagues dragged it away by the ankles without breaking eye contact with the chopping board. Another researcher began murmuring what sounded like a funeral chant in its native language. "You're handling it barehanded." Keylor's voice barely registered above a whisper. "With an unsterilized blade? On porous wood." His mandibles worked soundlessly for a moment. "Do you people even understand germ theory?" Dave sprinkled salt. "My mom used to lick spoons and feed me with them. I turned out fine." The medical tricorder made an unhappy beeping noise and shut down. A tomato came next. When the knife punctured its skin, red juice sprayed across the cutting board. The growth technician responded exactly as its species does when encountering arterial spray, by secreting emergency coagulant fluid from its dorsal vents. Foam dripped onto the floor. "Note the carnage," Keylor whispered hoarsely. "The way it desecrates the very structure of nourishing matter." Dave tossed the tomato chunks into the bowl. "You want croutons?" The word hung in the air like a threat. 12 alien translators stuttered through possible meanings. The cyborg scientist's head rotated 180 degrees to consult its database. You're not referring to the fortified ration bricks used in wartime? Nah, just some toasted bread with garlic. Dave rummaged in a cabinet. 6 different food safety alarms activated at once. The station's atmospheric controls automatically increased ventilation. Across the room, 3 scientists were now actively shielding their olfactory receptors. Kaylor clutched his datapad like a religious artifact. Garlic contains allicin. Allicin is literally how the full taxi cleanse engine parts. Dave shook the crouton bag. Make salads better. The sound of the croutons cascading into the bowl triggered fresh panic. The Screech medic scrambled back, its scanner waving wildly. Structural analysis shows these are desiccated carbohydrates, sharp-edged and calcified. They're crunchy, Dave corrected, final step, salad dressing. The moment Dave's fingers closed around the bottle, every radiation sensor in the room spiked. The Vitrian researcher made a small whimpering noise and clutched at its colleague. Ranch-flavored, Dave announced, shaking the bottle. The security chief physically recoiled. Do not agitate it. The dressing glooped onto the salad with an obscene squelch. The Rakiri contingent collectively dry-heaved. One researcher began quietly inputting data into what appeared to be a last will and testament program. Keylor's antennae stood at full alert. That emulsion contains buttermilk and garlic powder, he whispered in horrified awe. You're combining multiple biochemical threats into a single delivery system. Dave tossed the salad with 2 spoons. The wet slap of vegetables tumbling through dressing made the Growth Tech collapse into its own coagulation foam. Okay, Dave said, spearing a forkful. Here goes nothing. 12 scanners zoomed in. Every monitor displayed real-time organ function readouts. The station's AI began a hushed countdown in 3 different languages. The crunch echoed through the silent lab. Dave chewed, swallowed, took another bite. Silence. The medical scanner let out a confused blip.
Subject's vital signs remain
stable, digestive processes nominal. 10 seconds passed. Then 20. Dave took a 3rd bite. Little heavy on the dressing, he noted. Keeler's exoskeleton rattled like a cargo bay during re-entry. You feel no pain? No distress signals from your midsection? No overwhelming urge to expire? Dave chased a crouton with his fork. I mean, I wouldn't say no to a beer. Hauling itself up from the floor, the Screech medic tapped shakily at its datapad. Galactic medical journals will need extensive revisions, it muttered. This suggests human digestive systems contain entire undocumented neutralization mechanisms. Security. Footage later showed the exact moment when 12 scientists simultaneously lost their collective grip on reality. Some slumped bonelessly against consoles. Others started laughing with the hysterical pitch of those who've stared directly into the void. The cyborg powered down completely. Whether from overload or existential crisis remained unclear. Keylor slowly removed his emergency goggles. This changes everything, he murmured, watching Dave take another unbothered bite. Either humans possess unprecedented biological adaptations or, he swallowed hard, or salad is actually harmless and we've fundamentally misunderstood your species. Dave considered this while chewing. Could go either way, he said, spraying a fleck of lettuce. The readings didn't lie. Blood pressure stable, no toxins detected in his bloodstream, not even an elevated heart rate. Just a janitor having lunch under extreme scientific scrutiny. Keylor triggered the emergency meeting protocol with trembling pincers. Conference room, he announced hoarsely. We need to reassess prior assumptions. As the aliens shuffled out in various states of shock, Dave took his salad and sat down at an abandoned console. The station's AI hesitated, then politely asked if he wanted the biohazard alarm switched off. Yeah, Dave said through a mouthful of tomato. And maybe turn on the game? Somewhere down the hall, the distinct sound of an exoskeletal researcher headbutting a bulkhead echoed through the corridors. The research lab's medical scanners hummed in eerie unison, their holographic displays tracking every biological fluctuation as Dave chewed. 12 alien scientists clutched their diagnostic pads with white-knuckled intensity, antennae vibrating with anticipation. Professor Keylor adjusted his spectrometer headset, mandibles clicking with nervous energy. Prepare for immediate detox protocols, he whispered to the Screech medic. No oxygen breather survives direct ingestion of lactucin compounds at these concentrations. Dave swallowed. The room held its breath. The primary medical scanner chirped, not with alarm but with the bored tone of a device confirming obvious facts. Kaylor's compound eyes darted to the life signs display. Human subject, stable. Digestive activity, nominal. Neurochemical readings showed. Pleasure centers lighting up like a festival grid. Impossible, hissed the Vitrian researcher, stabbing at its console. Run the toxin analysis again. The robotic arm obediently swabbed Dave's salad bowl, then subjected the sample to 12 separate biochemical assays. Results ticked across the monitors one by one. Oxalic acid, present. Lactocin, confirmed. Digestive distress markers conspicuously absent. Dave scooped up another forkful, this time with an extra crouton. The sound of his molars crushing the toasted bread fragment made the Growth technician secrete emergency lubrication fluid from its dorsal vents. Keylor's exoskeletal plating rattled as he leaned closer to the scanner. Are we certain the instruments aren't malfunctioning? Perhaps experiencing some sort of human-induced calibration error? The cyborg scientist rotated its head 180 degrees to examine the equipment. Diagnostics indicate all systems operating within parameters, it reported. Then, with what sounded like genuine distress, the subject appears to be deriving nutritional satisfaction from poison. Dave paused mid-chew. You guys staring at my stomach acid or something? Every scanner in the room obediently zoomed in on his abdominal region. Thermal imaging showed the normal churn of digestion. Chemical analysis revealed gastric juices breaking down the salad with the same efficiency as a standard nutrient paste. Perhaps better. The Screech medic's thoracic vents flared in disbelief. His hydrochloric acid levels are borderline industrial. It tapped the readout with a trembling claw. This could dissolve a maintenance drone's plating. Yeah, heartburn's a bitch, Dave agreed, reaching for his drink. Kaylor's antennae stood at full attention as the station's medical AI began narrating in its calm, clinical voice, subject demonstrating textbook peristalsis. No inflammation detected in gastrointestinal tract. Dopamine release consistent with... The AI hesitated. Pleasant dining experience. For the first time in recorded galactic history, 13 different species versions of stunned silence occurred simultaneously. The Rakiri contingent huddled around their displays, whispering frantically. Perhaps humans evolved some sort of mucosal shielding. One ventured, or specialized enzyme. Cofactors to neutralize plant-based defense. Compounds, theorized another. Dave drowned his salad in more ranch dressing. Heads turned as medical monitors pinged with fresh data. The Screech medic squinted at its readout. Fascinating. The dressing appears to be forming a protective emulsion with the leafy matter, potentially delaying toxin release. Nah, Dave corrected through a mouthful. Just tastes good. Keeler slowly lowered his scanner, his chitinous faceplate slack with dawning realization. You're telling me your species didn't develop neutralizing adaptations in response to these toxins? We just kinda powered through it, I guess. The Vitrian researcher made a sound like a malfunctioning airlock. You mean to say humanity's digestive resilience emerged from sheer stubbornness? Medical archives scrolled across every screen, highlighting absurdities. Humans producing amylase to break down mild toxins in grains. Their livers metabolizing caffeine as though it were a nutrient. Entire enzyme systems dedicated to processing ethanol, a known fuel additive and industrial solvent. The cyborg rotated its ocular sensors with a faint whir. This suggests your people didn't evolve around poison so much as bullied your biology into submission. Dave considered this while chasing a rogue cherry tomato. I mean, you should see what we do with lactose. Fresh panic erupted at the mention of yet another compound. The growth tech began projecting star maps onto the nearest wall. We must resurvey Earth's ecosystem immediately. If their flora produces this many weaponized compounds naturally... guys? Dave waved his fork at the ceiling. You're overthinking this. Half our foods started out mildly poisonous. We just kept eating them till they weren't. He speared a chunk of cucumber. Grandma didn't have enzyme supplements, she had a cast-iron stomach and poor life choices. The scanners didn't lie. No anaphylactic responses, no organ distress, no emergency histamine releases. Just normal human digestion, if normal included processing compounds that sent other species into anaphylactic shock, like they were spicy hors d'oeuvres. Kaylor accessed the Galactic Medical Database, pulling up comparative charts. Fascinating. The rom species developed 7 stomachs to filter toxins. The Flurix evolved ceramic-based esophageal linings. He gestured at Dave with an unsteady claw. Humans apparently relied upon trial error and written warnings like may cause anal leakage. The security chief's ocular membrane slid sideways to examine her sidearm. Suddenly, the Terran military's toss it in a pot and see what happens field ration policy makes horrific sense. Over at the snack table, Dave rummaged through the cabinet. You got any hot sauce? Stuff's bland as hell. A medical scanner slipped from the Screech's numb claws and shattered on the floor. No one moved to clean it up. The station's AI finally broke the silence. Proposing theory, human digestive systems operate on the fireproof by being already on fire principle. Dave salted his salad, another behavior that made the growth secretion. Glands flare up and took another bite. On the monitors, his blood pressure remained steady at unconcerned blue-collar worker levels. Professor Keylor tapped slowly at his datapad, eyes fixed on the readings. We must completely rewrite the exobiology textbooks, he murmured. Humans treat lethal compounds like seasoning. If it doesn't kill you in under an hour, we'll probably put it on pizza, Dave confirmed across the room. The Vitrian researcher quietly bookmarked a page titled, Earth Cuisine Hazard Pay Required. Keylor rotated the holographic scan of Dave's gastrointestinal tract with newfound reverence. This isn't just tolerance, he whispered. It's biological brinkmanship. The Screech medic nodded along as fresh scans confirmed. Dave's liver enzymes casually dismantling compounds that would hospitalize most carbon-based life forms. Then the medical AI delivered its final assessment in that same calm, clinical tone. Conclusion. Subject appears to be deriving genuine enjoyment from biochemical warfare materials. Dave pushed the empty bowl away and patted his stomach. Little heavy on the croutons, but not bad. No alarm sounded. No emergency protocols activated. Just 13 shell-shocked alien scientists staring at their instruments like they'd personally betrayed the scientific method. Professor Keylor removed his goggles with ceremonial slowness. Human Dave, he began, voice thick with something between awe and existential dread. We appear to have severely underestimated your people's relationship with... He gestured weakly at the salad remnants. Everything. Dave burped quietly into his fist, an action that triggered 3 fresh medical scans, and reached for his drink. So does this mean I can bring in kimchi tomorrow? No fewer than 4 emergency biohazard containment protocols activated preemptively. The fire suppression system deployed 3 sealing nozzles in their general direction. On the positive side, the lab floors had never been so clean. The research station's central database flickered as Professor Keylor pulled up planetary classification charts with trembling appendages. Every screen displayed Earth's profile, now flashing with emergency reclassification warnings. Type 15, he murmured, his voice hollow. A death world by any metric. The Vitrian scientist nodded along, its carapace plates making nervous clicking sounds. Dave yawned and stretched in his chair, tossing an empty soda can toward the recycler. It clattered against the edge before falling in. The sound made 3 researchers jump. You realize what this means? Professor Keylor zoomed in on planetary surveys showing Earth's lush greenery. Your homeworld's flora didn't just evolve toxins, it weaponized mediocrity. That lettuce wasn't an outlier. It was representative. The Screech medic pulled up comparative biochemistry charts. Earth plants contain alkaloids, oxalates, tannins, all designed to deter consumption. But your species didn't just overcome these defenses. You turned them into snacks. Dave scratched his neck. That's why iceberg's the worst one. Tastes like crunchy water. The aliens exchanged glances. The database pinged with new information. Records of Earth's history surfacing. Keylor adjusted his spectacles and read aloud. Human agriculture shows consistent patterns of selectively breeding plants for increased toxicity. Wait, no, Dave corrected. We breed them to taste better. Keylor blinked. Define better. Dave gestured vaguely. More flavor? Like we took corn from this sad grass thing to... The Vitrian scientist stabbed a claw at its screen. Genetic modification records. You forced a defensive proto-grain to explode its own seed production until it became sweet and starchy. The cyborg adjusted its optical focus. It parallels their domestication of wolves into dogs, taking a natural predator and reshaping it into a foot warmer. That checks out, Dave mused. My beagle's basically a couch with teeth. A hush fell over the group as the implications sank in. The Rakiri contingent huddled together, whispering urgently. The lead xenobiologist tapped shakily at her datapad. This suggests human evolution occurred in an environment so hostile that your ancestors normalized enduring small amounts of poison as routine nutritional intake. Dave shrugged. You get used to heartburn after a while. The station's AI abruptly projected a holographic timeline of Earth's geological history. Mass extinctions, asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, glacial periods that should have wiped out all complex life except something kept surviving. Kalor's exoskeleton rattled as he traced the timeline. 5 major extinction events, countless climate shifts, and every time your biosphere responded by producing more aggressive toxins. Dave squinted at the projection. Guess that's why chili peppers are spicy. The growth technician made a noise like a broken vacuum cleaner. You confirm this knowingly? Your people evolved under constant biochemical assault, and your solution was to bottle the irritants as condiments? The Screech medic pulled up cross-species comparisons. Look, the Rom developed porcelain-lined stomachs. The Fluorix evolved decoy organs to absorb toxins. But humans? Its claw hovered over Dave's digestive scan. They just let the damage happen and regenerated faster than the poison could kill them. Kalor scrolled through physiological reports with increasing alarm. Your liver enzymes neutralize alkaloids. Your kidneys process heavy metals. Even your skin cells apoptose suspiciously fast. Yeah, Dave agreed. I had this gnarly sunburn last summer. A what? Interrupted the Vitrian. Big ball of plasma at the center of our solar system? Dave mimed an explosion with his hands. Puts out radiation that gives you cancer if you're outside too long. The room temperature seemed to drop. The cyborg's servos whined as it recalibrated its threat assessment protocols. The Screech medic whispered, You're telling me your star tries to kill you? Only sometimes. Mostly in July. Dave took a sip of soda. We just slap on some aloe and deal with it. A wave of horrified understanding rippled through the assembled scientists. Professor Kalor slowly lowered his datapad. This explains everything. Your species didn't dominate Earth despite the dangers. You dominated because of them. The security chief consulted her sidearm with newfound respect. What kind of creatures evolved to treat poison as seasoning and radiation burns as minor inconveniences? The station AI helpfully piped up. Records indicate humans also willingly enter zero-gravity environments for recreation and consume fermented beverages that double as engine cleaners. Right, Dave said. Roller coasters and tequila. Kalor's exoskeleton made a noise like a collapsing suspension bridge. He rotated slowly toward Dave, all 6 limbs moving with deliberate care. Human Dave, he rasped. Your people didn't adapt to a death world. His mandibles clicked softly. You became the most dangerous thing on it. Dave polished off the last of his drink. The can crumpled in his grip with a metallic whine that made the Rakiri jump. Then he tossed it, a perfect arc, into the recycler. Silence. The security chief's tertiary eyes twitched. That casual use of crushing force. Kalor straightened his lab coat with newfound solemnity. A decision had clearly been reached. Station log update, he announced. Effective immediately. All human dietary items reclassified from biohazard to cultural artifacts. Protocol Gamma 9 rescinded. The scientists watched with a mix of awe and terror as Dave stretched again, his vertebrae producing audible pops. The sound made the Vitrian researcher's antennae quiver. Dave poked at his new office controls. The chair adjusted automatically, then shocked him when he tried to tilt back. Anti-grav setting, explained Kalor. Standard for species with fragile spines. My spine's fine, Dave grumbled, rubbing his lower back. 3 medical drones swooped in to confirm this claim. Their scans showed mild lumbar wear and tear consistent with a species that somehow evolved to both lift heavy objects and remain persistently bad at it. The Vitrian researcher handed Dave a stack of data crystals. Your first assignments. Priority requests from 12 member worlds. Dave flipped through the titles. Understanding Earth takeout containers and their structural resilience. The physics of human chugging behavior. One simply said, pickles how and why. A shadow crossed Kalor's face. There's also the matter of standardizing your observations. He pulled up a blank form. For the record, how would you classify lettuce now? Dave considered the question. Kinda basic? The station's AI helpfully suggested biochemical warfare agent, non-lethal to origin species, as an alternative. No, just, Dave waved at the bowl. Sometimes you want a salad. Sometimes you don't. He leaned back, remembered the chair, and caught himself. Not everything's gotta be an existential threat. The aliens exchanged glances. The concept seemed to short-circuit several translators. Keylor slowly filed the form under pending further study. Dave's new console pinged. A priority message from the station's commissary. Requesting human consultation. Taco Tuesday protocols. Urgent. Security cameras later showed Dave ambling toward the kitchens, hands in pockets whistling. Every sensor tracked his movement. Bio readouts stayed stubbornly unremarkable. No radiological spikes, no toxin buildups. Just a guy who'd turned poison tolerance into a government salary. In the observation deck, Professor Keylor watched the scanners with quiet awe. Remarkable, he murmured. The Screech medic tapped fresh data onto a pad. Not just tolerance. Look at these dopamine levels when he smells. Whatever that is. Keylor's antennae twitched. Somehow, humanity took a survival trait and weaponized it into... He paused. The growth tech supplied the answer via foam writing on the observation glass. Snack time. Dave's laugh echoed down the corridor. Somewhere an oven dinged. The station's AI adjusted its threat assessment protocols one more time. Final draft complete. 1096 words. The station's intercom crackled to life with a priority alert, normally reserved for supernovas or invading fleets. Attention all personnel, announced the AI in a tone somehow conveying shrug emojis. Revised diplomatic protocols concerning human Earth are now in effect. Category updated from potential threat to dangerous useful friend. Down in the commissary, Dave crunched a celery stick while 14 alien ambassadors edged away from his snack plate. Protocol Gamma 9's repeal sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council's bureaucracy. Entire departments dedicated to planetary quarantine found themselves suddenly reassigned. The Vitrian homeworld recalled 3 battle cruisers from Earth's orbit, replacing them with agricultural survey teams. Professor Keylor spent 3 full solar cycles rewriting first contact manuals. The original draft's immediate neutralization procedures section became suggested gift ideas, edible plants only. Trade negotiations took surreal turns. When human delegates handed out boxes of chocolate-covered espresso beans at the first summit, 7 translators short-circuited, trying to explain why ambassadors were simultaneously vibrating and crying. Security footage showed the Screech diplomat discreetly scanning the treats, then whispering to an aide. The poison appears to be the selling point. Back on the research station, cultural bafflement reached new heights. The station's hydroponics bay now contained 2 separate lettuce patches, one behind blast shielding labeled original specimen, the other fertilized with coffee grounds per Dave's instructions. The growth technicians monitored both with identically nervous energy. You realize what this means for interspecies relations? Keylor muttered to the security chief during one particularly tense lunch hour. They watched Dave casually dunk raw onion slices into something called French dressing. The surrounding tables had emptied in concentric rings. We spent generations fearing Deathworld predation. Turns out humans just wanted to share recipes. Records of early human spaceflight took on horrifying new context. Galactic historians pored over footage of astronauts eating irradiated, rehydrated meals while floating beside control panels. They were laughing, marveled one Rakiri scholar during a now infamous symposium, voluntarily ingesting cream-style corn in a tin can surrounded by lethal vacuum. This wasn't desperation, it was Tuesday. Dave's promotion triggered infrastructure changes across the station. The break room installed a human-scale fridge stocked with condiments the science team still scanned twice daily. Someone bolted a maximum human capacity, 1 plaque beneath the emergency shower sign. When Earth's first official cultural attaché arrived, a cheerful diplomat who immediately brewed a pot of coffee, 3 Vitrian security officers resigned on the spot. Military implications unfolded faster than predicted. The discovery that human stomach acid could double as starship hull cleaner led to 5 immediate patent filings. War colleges scrambled to update strategic doctrines. One particularly frazzled tactical AI kept generating invasion scenarios where Earth forces weaponized food trucks. Planetary defense budgets were quietly reallocated to salad bar research. Personal interactions grew easier, if no less bizarre. Researchers developed a habit of leaving random vegetables on Dave's desk just to watch him react. "It's a rutabaga," he'd say, and the observing aliens would frantically update their databases. One memorable afternoon, the entire xenobiology department gathered to witness him bite into a lemon. Their published paper, Voluntary Citric Assault, Ritual or Recreation, won 3 academic awards. Cultural exchange programs flourished despite constant medical scares. Earth's first interstellar cooking show, Will It Fry?, became a surprise hit across 12 systems. Viewers tuned in weekly to watch chefs batter and deep fry increasingly improbable alien produce. The episode featuring lightly breaded Fluorix dendrites resulted in both a ceasefire and a lucrative catering contract. Backroom politics shifted overnight. Where once human diplomats faced suspicious glares, they now enjoyed wary fascination. Trade agreements hinged on spice tolerance demonstrations. Peace talks included snack breaks where nervous delegates gaped at human representatives, casually chewing gum, a habit the Galactic Times described as systematic jaw rebellion against nature itself. The station's security protocols underwent their most comprehensive overhaul since the plasma parasite incident. Emergency drills now included rogue human snacking scenarios. Defensive shields calibrated to detect incoming missiles were repurposed to identify airborne capsaicin particles. Someone installed salad tongs in every decontamination airlock just in case. Real estate values fluctuated wildly. Apartments near Earth's embassy spiked 300% as curious aliens sought proximity to humans. Landlords began listing human-proof ventilation as premium amenities. One enterprising Vitrian turned their basement into a themed cafe called Death World Diner, complete with hazard-striped menus warning about may contain actual nutrients. Scientific paradigms collapsed daily. The prestigious Journal of Xenogastroenterology retracted 17 studies after peer review, confirmed humans processed nutrients backward compared to most life forms. A famous paper theorizing Earth flora's toxins as primitive defenses was quietly edited to add, or brilliantly adaptive marketing strategy, in the conclusions. Religious scholars had field days. The Fluorix's Cosmic Harmony sect declared humans holy fools, whose reckless eating habits proved spiritual enlightenment. Rakiri street preachers began warning about the coming of the iron-stomached ones. One fringe cult started worshipping toasters after seeing Dave make breakfast. Galactic pop culture adapted fastest. A hit song titled Let Us Pray topped interstellar charts for 9 cycles. Children's cartoons featured daring human characters who ate the scary plants to save the day. The phrase "hold my beer" entered 12 languages as shorthand for improbably dangerous optimism. Then Professor Keylor's posture shifted. His mandibles spread into what the universal translator interpreted as a diplomatic smile. "Human Dave," he began. "We would be honored if you'd consider joining our research team as a consultant." Dave blinked. "You mean like talking about Earth food?" The Screech medic projected a holographic contract, specifically explaining why your species willingly ingests substances that dissolve our safety equipment. Across the room, the Vitrian researcher muttered, "I still don't understand the ranch dressing concept." Dave scratched his chin. "What's the pay like?" Keylor entered some figures on his wrist console. Dave whistled. "Damn, can I expense takeout?" The cyborg scientist's head rotated 180 degrees, a gesture of pure existential defeat. "You intend to continue consuming hazardous materials even with this knowledge?" Dave grinned and pulled a chocolate bar from his pocket. The scientist recoiled as one. "Theobromine," shrieked the Grolth tech, activating its personal force field. "Relax," Dave said, unwrapping it with deliberate slowness. "Won't kill me in under an hour." Keylor exhaled sharply through his thoracic spiracles. Then he tapped his console again. Additional stipend approved. Security footage later showed Dave signing the contract with a plastic spork while absently chewing on the chocolate. The station's medics continued running diagnostics just in case. Their scanners didn't lie. Heart rate steady, blood pressure normal, neurochemistry suggesting mild happiness rather than imminent organ failure. The Vitrian researcher nudged Professor Keylor. "Do you suppose humans experience fear?" Across the room, Dave reached into his bag. The entire science team froze as his hand emerged holding just a banana, Dave announced. 7 different spectrometers activated at once. Professor Keylor sighed and updated the station's records again. Noted for research purposes, humans insist on referring to potassium-rich radioactive isotopes as breakfast. Dave peeled it with one hand. You guys really need to chill. A bio-alarm whooped in the distance. Someone screamed. The Growth Tech dissolved into another foam puddle. Business as usual. The lab doors slid open with a hiss, the kind usually reserved for visiting dignitaries, and 6 security drones escorted Dave through the corridor. His mop bucket had been replaced by a floating data pad. The janitorial jumpsuit remained. Professor Keylor stood at a gleaming console flanked by the station's senior staff. Their postures suggested a ceremonial occasion, if ceremonial occasions involved twitching antennae and repeated bioscans. Human Dave? Keylor began, mandibles quivering. After today's revelations, the board has voted unanimously to offer you a position. A holographic contract shimmered into existence. Dave squinted at the floating text. The salary figure made his eyebrow climb. You want to pay me how much to talk about salad? Not salad, corrected the Vitrian scientist. Biochemical defiance. Its claws tapped the console, pulling up Dave's earlier scans. Your species treats plant toxins like minor inconveniences. That's not just academic curiosity, it's revolutionary bioengineering potential. The numbers kept scrolling. Housing allowance. Hazard pay, retroactive. A line item simply labeled snack budget with alarming figures. Dave scratched his neck. So what's the job title? Keylor consulted his notes. Senior Consultant for Death World Culinary Practices and Related Biological Anomalies. Could we shorten that to Food Guy? 13 different translators emitted error chimes. The contract auto-scrolled to the benefits section. Full medical. Not that Dave seemed to need it. Access to restricted labs. An entire fermentation chamber someone had hastily renamed Human Recreation Zone. Dave tapped the floating display. This says I get my own lab assistant. Across the room, the Growth technician turned an interesting shade of mauve and began extruding stress foam. Keylor's mandibles clicked. You'll notice additional clauses regarding off-world travel. The Galactic Council has requested demonstrations of human eating habits, clarified the Screech medic. There's particular interest in this buffet concept. Security footage showed Dave's expression cycling through disbelief, amusement, and finally the slow grin of a man realizing he'd stumbled into the universe's easiest scam. The floating pen hovered near his hand. Wait, said the cyborg scientist. Its ocular lenses zoomed. Before signing, we require one final confirmation. It pulled up a holographic waiver. You certify that any provided food samples will not, in fact, dissolve our insides. Dave grabbed the pen. The moment it touched his fingerprint, emergency lights pulsed gold across the station. The PA announced, promotion protocol activated. Janitorial access revoked. Elevating human subject to clearance level. Irradiated Snack King. His new ID badge materialized with a cheerful ping. The holographic tag listed his title, pay grade, and, alarmingly, a small icon of a grinning skull next to the words, dietary habits, yes. Back in the lab, the cleaned salad bowl sat as evidence. Someone had encased it in a preservation field with a plaque that read, First Contact Artifact, 387B, The Innocence Before Comprehension. Economic impact studies showed wild projections. Analysts predicted Earth's export of danger snacks would outpace traditional manufacturing within 5 years. Stock markets reacted erratically, particularly after one CEO demonstrated extreme nachos during an earnings call. Insurance companies began offering human interaction riders on standard policies. Personal relationships got weird. Interspecies dating profiles listing enjoys spicy food saw 700% more engagement. The first recorded human Vitrian marriage featured a buffet that made the officiant faint. Social media flooded with videos of aliens daring each other to try human candy, usually followed by medical intervention, academic standards adjusted. Galactic University admissions now accepted successful consumption of Earth produce as extracurricular credit. Culinary schools added mandatory human cuisine modules where students analyzed ranch dressing under electron microscopes. One prestigious institute's motto quietly changed to question everything, especially sandwiches. Military recruitment skyrocketed for Earth's forces. Young aliens from civilized worlds enlisted just to see humans in action. Basic training videos showing Marines eating MREs became unexpected propaganda tools. The infamous Rehydrated Chili Mac Challenge video went quadruple platinum. Even fashion felt the shift. Designers debuted human core collections featuring durable fabrics and inexplicable pockets. A-list celebrities accessorized with novelty Kiss the Cook aprons. The Vitrian Emperor himself appeared at a state function wearing a Pizza Planet trucker hat, though his staff later confirmed he believed it was ceremonial garb. Through it all, the research station remained ground zero. Dave's janitor closet had been preserved as a historical site next to the salad incident containment chamber. Tours passed through hourly, guides whispering the now legendary phrase, "And then the human said it was just lunch." New contact protocols distilled to simple principles. Don't panic at mealtimes. Assume all condiments are weapons grade until proven otherwise. Most importantly, never, ever, underestimate a species that considers poison a flavor enhancer. As first contact specialist Kaylor noted in his final report, they turned food into diplomacy, indigestion into cultural exchange, and somehow convinced the galaxy that a cup of black coffee constitutes a morning ritual, rather than a dire medical event. He paused, mandibles twitching. Frankly, we're lucky they're friendly. Imagine if they'd weaponized brunch. The station AI monitored Earth transmissions around the clock, alert levels decreasing incrementally with each baking show and food truck festival. Somewhere beneath the constant scanning, a secondary program began compiling data on something far more terrifying: human potluck dinners. Meanwhile, back in the commissary, Dave licked ranch dressing off his fingers while 6 alien scientists took careful notes. Someone had ordered pizza. The fire suppression systems were already deploying just in case. So here's the thing about lettuce. Somewhere between its nutrient deficiencies and structural mediocrity, Earth's most boring vegetable became an intergalactic incident. The aliens saw poison. Dave saw lunch. Turns out danger's just a matter of perspective. What started as a biohazard panic ended with mutual respect and a promotion for knowing salad recipes. The galaxy now views humans with nervous admiration, the way you might regard someone who routinely juggles chainsaws. Which means the next time you're grabbing some greens at the buffet, consider this. You're not just eating. You're performing an evolutionary flex that's either comforting or terrifying, possibly both. Pass the ranch.